Hi, welcome to the Center for Conservative Media. I'm Josephine Robbins.
I'm Emily Giroux.
And we are here today talking to Rachel Sanders, the Campus Dietitian of Liberty University. And today we're talking about the health and wellness of our students and eating services. And we're so excited to have you on, Rachel. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks for having me. So my name is Rachel Sanders. I am the campus dietitian here at Liberty University. I've been here for almost 10 years on campus. I am actually a native to Lynchburg as well. So really my main job on campus is really to promote the health and wellness of our students through food service.
Awesome. Can you go ahead and just tell us about what you studied in college and how you really started to become passionate about health and nutrition?
So I went to Virginia Tech for college. My undergrad is in human nutrition, foods, and exercise with a concentration in dietetics. However, I started at Virginia Tech as a food science major. So I thought that I was going to be in research and development of food products. I grew up on a small family hobby farm, so I was always really interested in agriculture. But during my first year at Tech, I realized that what I really wanted to do was work with people. I couldn't imagine my life in a lab necessarily or spend my career in a lab, so I switched to dietetics. So it's really a way for me to blend agriculture, food with people.
What does the day in your life look like as a campus dietitian for the dining services?
So every day on campus is different, which is the model of a job that I really prefer. It's almost more project-based. So every day looks very different. If I had to do prior to this, I was a clinical dietitian, so it's very mundane. Kind of you go to the hospital, you get your patient load, you talk to them, you chart, you go home. Some days I'm working with students doing nutrition counseling. Some days we're doing produce stands. Some days I'm in a K through 12 cafeteria sampling foods. Some days I'm in the back of kitchens doing food audits. Some days I'm guest lecturing, and like today, sometimes I'm doing podcasts. Every day is different, which is what makes it exciting for me.
I love that. I saw in your little bio for Liberty Dining Services that you offer different programs that you provide throughout the year to teach students about nutrition. Can you talk to us about that?
So one of the main ways that I do nutrition education, when I first came to campus, I spent a lot of time doing tablings myself. As my position has evolved over really the last decade, now I rely on student interns. So normally they're undergraduate public health students. So they work with me to provide nutrition education. So those could be national food holidays, like March is National Nutrition Month, or it's February, so we focus on heart health. Also, we disseminate a lot of information through social media because obviously we know that young adults prefer to get a lot of their information that way. So whether it be writing text for stories that then we partner with Sodexo marketing team to capture pictures of, all different ways to kind of disseminate that information. But the nutrition interns in our department are a really big part of that information delivery.
Yeah, no, that's really great. I like what you said about the whole thing with the information that our generation likes to get online, because that's definitely where I think we get most of our news anyway.
Yes.
Has there been we were kind of talking a little bit before we got on air about different TikTok trends and stuff like that, but have you seen any common misconceptions, like things about seed oils or protein intake, things like that you would want to kind of clear the air about with our generation, that as far as health and nutrition go?
Yeah, so I think that like with every new week, especially every month, there's some new trend popping up, right? So I would caution all students, actually not just young adults, but all of us, to not get too caught up in those trends, but really to stay with what's evidence-based, what's tried and true. So good, solid nutrition hasn't dramatically changed in decades at this point. So good nutrition is about getting plenty of colorful fruits and vegetables, lean protein, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates.
Yeah. And we're kind of talking about when health can be taken too far. Mm-hmm. And I really like some of the things that you had mentioned about that, because I think those are just practical things that we see in our everyday life, because especially for women, there's such a push about this skinny talk and all of that stuff. And I think you had a really good view on things that you thought about clean eating and how it can be taken too far, where it actually negatively impacts our mental health.
Yeah, so there's a huge movement towards, not putting good health and us, like, we in our world we talk about it as thin privilege. So all those ideas that just seem almost unattainable to especially young women, taking those off of the pedestal and really thinking, what are the practical applications of good nutrition that can be sustainable in your life? So as you mentioned, one of those things that we can almost get obsessive about is clean eating, or maybe sourcing certain foods. So, only wanting to eat organic foods. Well, that can be okay, but for some people living on a limited budget, like young college students, that might not be feasible. So if it's choosing between not eating an adequate amount of fruits and vegetables versus eating maybe a frozen vegetable, a canned vegetable, something that maybe is in season that you can afford fresh, like we have to think about all the variables that go into the foods that we choose on a daily basis, and not get so hung up in those outliers that we see maybe on the social media, like you were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What advice would you give to off-campus students who are, right now, they don't have the raw or any other on-campus eating? What advice would you give them for if they've never cooked before? How are they able to live a healthy lifestyle while on a budget and making their own meals?
So I think we live in a world where it's easier to learn to cook with all of the online resources that we are just kind of putting in a negative light. But you can go to places like a lot of our cooperative extension organizations within the states. So every state would have their own, and they would have lots of information about basic cooking skills. So, I'm sure you can Pinterest or Google or YouTube all kinds of nice skills and how do you steam, how do you roast. Lots of good sources of that type of information for us in today's age. But I would say my biggest advice for our off-campus students is to really start with a plan. So the worst time to think about what you're going to have for dinner is when it's 6:00 at night, you're still on campus, you're starving, and you want to think about eating a healthy dinner. That's not going to work, right? Because you're way more likely to stop for fast food on your way home or eat something like just snacks, random snacks in your apartment when you get home otherwise. So meal planning and just not necessarily prepping the food out, but having a roadmap for the week. How are you going to utilize leftovers? What meals you're going to eat at home? What do you need to eat off camp or out somewhere? Having that roadmap is super helpful.
Yeah, so what would you say about meal prepping? Like, what are your thoughts on that whole topic?
Meal prepping. I personally have never been amazingly successful at meal prepping. It seems like a ton of work to me. Some people it works for. So, having that written down list resonates, I think, is more of a practical way. But if you are a person that wants to spend hours one day a week prepping it out, I think that is doable. Are you a person that's going to get bored with eating that food, though? If you are, then that's not likely something that's going to work into your life. I am I'm an older person at this point in my life, so I'm feeding an entire family. So the thought of meal prepping doesn't really work in my life personally. But
Yeah, that's something I'm struggling with right now is not wanting to eat. I live off campus, so not wanting to eat the same meal, 4 nights in a row while cooking for myself. So I'm trying to like meal plan with roommates. That way we don't have it for as many meals or just make small changes like that.
I'm somewhat of a meal prepper. I will
Okay.
eat the same meal for like 4 days straight.
and
get
you're
sick of
totally fine with it.
Here's like my thing is if I make something and it's like absolutely disgusting, I can't. I'm like, this is awful. So I have to like meal prep things I like know are gonna be good, So like there's one day a week, probably on like Sunday night, I'll be chefing it up and no expenses spared. Like it's gotta be good if I'm gonna eat this for a couple days in a row.
Yeah.
But there has been a couple meals that are super quick and easy that I've found, even like on Instagram. Like last night it was like a soup. It was just bone broth and onion, white beans, and like lemon juice. It was kind of like the Greek like ognolemona like soup, but it was like could not have cost more than $5 to throw that meal together.
Wow.
And there's like enough servings for probably like 2 days, and that's not something I have to like freeze or meal prep, but it's just something that will last me a good 2 days and things like that. Maybe we need to start like a blog with some
A food blog. I'm making soup tonight, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What type of soup?
Chicken and wild rice.
Oh, that sounds
My first
great.
time, so we'll see.
Yeah, we
how it goes.
we've had some experience making our own kombucha, which
Nice. That sounds pretty difficult, actually.
yeah. So we like to cook. One thing I will say, if you're out there as a student and you're trying to meal prep, make sure you don't. And also with your wild soup, don't freeze it in a glass container. It can explode. Happened a couple times to me.
Oh man.
That's the only advice I have about
The
meal
change
prepping.
in temperature is hard on glass.
Yes, especially if it's not the right type of glass.
Yes.
How should I freeze my soup if I want to do that? Do you
Just
guys know?
let it like cool completely, and also like some glass is better than other glass I've found. Sometimes glass doesn't like explode.
Well, it's the change in like temperature too drastically. It's funny that you said this. So I had my daughter was sick last night, so she wanted a smoothie. So I made her a smoothie. There was extra, so I put it in a glass jar. So my youngest son wanted it for breakfast this morning, and he asked me, "Can you put this in the microwave?" And we had the exact conversation. I said, "Buddy, if I put this jar in the microwave, it is going to explode everywhere, and I don't have time for that this morning." So yes.
Yes.
Oh my god.
No, that's
The other good thing with meal prepping, have you ever tried just cooking like, let's say, ground turkey or ground beef and then utilizing it in different ways? I think that could be helpful, like in a soup for more protein, or maybe you can make it into like a sauce with noodles and veggies. So utilizing one staple in different ways if you're a person that wants meal variety and you can't eat the same thing for days and days. So
Yeah.
I had some friends who did that with ground beef, and I thought that was the most revolutionary. Like it just blew my mind. I was like, that's the smartest thing, especially like even if you're not a student, even if you're a working professional or a mom. That is such an easy like hack to just like brown a bunch of meat at the same time. Like I'll have some that's meal prep like specifically for taco things. It'll just be like taco seasoning and ground beef, but you can use it for taco salads or that. Just whatever.
Same thing with like shredded chicken is it's very versatile. Lots of different uses for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting into the topic of balance being in college, balancing between eating healthy and then also if your friends are going out to eat at like a fast food place and still wanting to have a good time and like enjoy that college experience, how would you recommend students are able to balance that?
So it goes back to that plan. It's best when we like say, what's your favorite restaurant to go to?
La Carreta.
I knew you were going to say that. I feel like Liberty students love La Carreta. So if it's a day that you know you're going to have La Carreta, well, we can think about the fact that La Carreta is pretty high in fat and carbohydrates, right? So maybe if we off balance that with if we think about the other food groups, we're not likely to get adequate amount of fruits and vegetables, lean protein at La Carreta. So we could eat those and then, the meal leading up to La Coretta. If you go to La Coretta after, say, church on Sunday, then maybe you think about having a dinner, like an entree salad or a veggie soup that, has the beans in it that you're talking about. So we can kind of balance it in that way as well.
That's really good advice.
Yeah,
I need to do
good
that.
advice.
But you also have to think about, is it realistic to think, like, if your friends just spontaneously ask you to go to La Coretta, it's not a healthy thing necessarily to not participate in that outing with friends only for the sake of food, right? If you're like, oh my word, I can't do that. It doesn't fit into my meal plan for today. Well, thankfully, God created our bodies to be able to roll with the punches pretty well, if you will. So, having radical thoughts like, I'm going to derail all my nutrition goals for the week if I do this is not a rational thought to have. Mm. So it's what we do for the majority of the time that makes the biggest difference in our lives. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not promoting eating La Coretta every single night here, but if it happens spontaneously, then yes, you should give yourself, the grace to be able to participate.
Yeah. I think the important thing too with like healthy eating in general is it's not one big commitment, but it's a bunch of small decisions that you make. Mm-hmm. I think that sometimes we get caught up in this way of like thinking of like, I am going to eat nothing but protein and fiber for the next year of my life. And
that sounds fun, right?
Going to be ripped. And then one thing happens and we're like, everything explodes.
Yeah.
And like, that's just not a good reality. Yeah. The truth is just like, have small, simple goals. Like, maybe don't eat cake every time they offer it in the office. Things like that. Mm-hmm.
So I have a sign in my office that says patterns over perfection, which is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The other thing like that, like if we want to put practicality in, is we think about hunger cues and what we're craving in those moments. So we live in a culture, in a society where there are foods and treats and gluttonous foods everywhere. We have access to them in a lot of different ways. So if we turn back and think to ourselves, are we really hungry? Do we need to eat at this point? That can help guide our choices. And we can think through, what are you actually craving for the day? Just because something passes your line of view doesn't mean that you absolutely have to eat it. You kind of you check in with yourself and have that idea. Like, obviously I've talked about my kids, but I like to teach my kids, and it's the same thing for us here on campus. Like, if I'm going to have a treat a day, whether that be something fried, something sweet, maybe it's even strawberry season and I'm having like an extra serving of strawberries for the day. Whatever that is, you kind of have that check-in with yourself of, what am I craving? What do I want to eat today? And that can take some of the pressure off.
Mm. Yeah, like listening to your body, eating when you're hungry, eating what your body needs.
How would you say like the nutrition for men and women is different? Or is it radically different, or is it basically the same?
So the energy levels, or the amount of calories needed, is different, especially in this young adult population. Obviously, males need more calories than young females. The exception would be like for our college athletes. Their numbers would be, a female college athlete could very well need more calories than a male student that's not participating in that high level of activity.
Okay. Yeah.
But I would say, for the sake of, I like to teach students to think more in meal pattern, like by food group types. It's not necessary for students, a young healthy adult, to know how many calories they need a day, how many grams of protein. Like, that's just getting kind of hung up in the weeds, if you will. Mm-hmm.
It's almost like that obsessive kind of like cultural shift we've seen towards like, oh, you need this, you need that, you need all these different
like things. If we think more in food group types, or the My Plate or the plate method, that is a much better way.
Do you think it's more expensive to eat healthy, or do you think that's a misconception that we've believed as a society?
So my answer to that would be that I used to say it was a myth. Now I think it's just expensive to eat, period.
Facts.
You know, like I'm a healthcare professional, but also a consumer myself. So ready to eat forms of something, you know, if you went to Fresh Market or you went to Kroger and you bought berries in a cup that were pre-washed, obviously the price of that is astronomical compared to buying them in a crate and washing them yourself. So there we have to be good stewards of our money in that way. So maybe, you know, you buy locally sourced products or seasonal products rather, or maybe you buy no salt added canned versions of foods to get them to increase or get adequate amounts of fruits and vegetables, as compared to buying, you know, whatever a more processed, easier kind of you might have to do a little bit more work, but I think that it could level out.
Yeah, I don't think it's any cheaper, honestly. Like, have you guys seen the Taco Bell prices lately? They're charging $8 for a quesadilla. That is ungodly.
Wow.
That is
Used to be
crazy.
$5.
I don't have Taco Bell experience, but my kids like Chick-fil-A, and that's insane.
Oh, yeah. Even
Yeah.
just from, like, when I was a kid, it's gone up so much.
Even in the last year, just like I've noticed grocery prices have
Yes.
Yeah.
really.
Do you know of any local places that do sell those seasonal foods that are a little bit cheaper?
Outside of like the farmers markets downtown and in
Okay.
some of the counties around,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, we are in the middle of Central Virginia. So the academic calendar does not work well with the growing seasons of this area.
Yeah.
So students leave here around early May when berries are coming in around this area. We have about a month to 6 weeks in August when students come back to source local goods before the season is gone. So unfortunately, they just don't work well together.
Yeah.
Now, I know some students live off campus, so if they hang around for the summer, places like those farmers markets would be a good place for them.
How do you think that Sodexo is I mean, we kind of covered this already, but how do you think Sodexo is prioritizing students' health as far as like dining services and things like that?
So one of the big programs within Sodexo is called Mindful. It's our take on health and wellness, basically. And it's really looking at all dimensions of wellness. So in the nutrition or the physical aspect of health, if it's a mindful recipe in our database, then it has to meet certain macronutrient criteria. But along with that program, there's blog posts and activities around all the other dimensions of health, like social and emotional, movement, sleeping, all those types of things. So that's one big way that Sodexo is working on health and wellness. And then, you know, when we think of we're always checking the pulse of our campus, whether it be through student culinary council or surveys, and really just combing through those and seeing what our students are wanting. I have this theory, and I tell my counterparts in leadership at Sodexo this. I feel like our students want healthy foods prepared in a really healthy way, but on the flip side, they want junk food really junky. Meaning, you know, like we have a lot of, recently we've had some feedback about wanting more desserts on campus, like fancier kind of desserts. So
students,
but they want to be able to eat healthy,
yeah,
too. So it kind of covers the gamut.
Yeah.
eat healthy during the day, and those late night cravings. That's when they
Yes.
want all the
Maybe
junk food.
so.
Yeah.
Do you know of any? Have you seen like rot hacks? People trying to work the rot and take one thing from here, another thing from here to try to like put together this extravagant meal. Have you seen any of that, or have any rot tips on what station students can go to if they're trying to be more mindful of their diet?
So probably the coolest one that I've ever seen. It was in the Old Reber. But this person made like a deconstructed sushi roll.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. They had like rice, they had veggie, they had like shredded carrots, cucumbers from the salad bar. I don't remember the protein. Then they got like mayo and sriracha and mixed it together and made like a drizzle. It was very fancy.
That is so creative.
But one of the more practical things, I see students taking like their Mexican plate, so like a rice, bean, a meat, and then going to the salad bar to add more color to it. I think that's a practical, easy thing to do. Taking a sandwich at the Rot, and instead of adding the fries at the station, going to have like a small side salad, add a fruit, maybe a dairy, like combining, kind of going to different stations and pairing food together that way.
Yeah. For our commuter students, do you have any like go-to meal suggestions that are quick and easy that like either you prepare for your family or like ideas that you would have for everyone?
So I'm partial to like the one pan meal, where you have like the cut up chicken or like turkey sausage, the small little potatoes, and the cut up random vegetables that are just hanging out in your fridge. Like maybe you have one crown of broccoli, one yellow. Actually, I had this exact thing last night, like one random yellow squash. So, the meals that you just put everything together and you just season it all with the same stuff, maybe like garlic powder, Italian seasoning, salt and pepper, and you're ready to roll. One of my favorite things that I've been using for a little over a year now is one of those glass spray bottles with avocado oil in it. I think that's a game changer.
Yeah.
You don't even really have to get your hands dirty by tossing stuff anymore.
Yeah.
You just spray it and roll.
Yeah.
So I love that part.
I won't go too long with this story because it's kind of a complicated story, but last year I tried to do something similar to that. I was like, I'm going to do this like lemon garlic chicken with, green beans in there and just like one dish with potatoes. And I didn't know, but there's like a chemical reaction that can happen with like fresh garlic and lemon and chicken, and it turned my chicken blue. Like, I'm not even lying.
Wow.
I like pulled it out and it like looked bad.
Oh my god.
And then I did go to Taco Bell and I did spend $8 on a quesadilla. But there were tears. I
That's
was like calling my
awesome.
boyfriend. I was like, it's blue chicken.
That's
So,
really funny.
just know, there's mistakes that can be made. But
Well, I
just
think
don't
that
quit.
I actually in the since Christmas had one of those meals that just completely went wrong, and I was like, okay, I'm done cooking for the night. Like, no, we're eating cereal. I'm sorry, guys. So yes, it happens to everybody, and I think it just means that we're normal humans.
Yeah.
But that's crazy. Blue food is wild.
Yeah, I've
No,
never
I
heard
like
of that
had to look it
happening.
up. I was like, why is my chicken blue? And it was like, there's like a rare chemical reaction that can happen with like
Oh my gosh.
fresh
I
garlic.
do think,
lemon
going back to
juice.
your point, I can't tell you the last time I bought a bulb of garlic though. Like I just buy minced garlic and water because I can't imagine after working all day, balancing all like studying at night or that type of thing, wanting to always cut up garlic the way that you should.
I just throw garlic powder on there at this
Or
point.
garlic powder.
Makes your hands smell like weird for days whenever you cut up garlic sometimes. Like, let's be so real here.
A chef told me once that the secret to that is the stickiness of like fresh garlic is to sprinkle it with salt.
Oh, yeah. I have read that before.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's well,
Do you have anything else?
I think that's it for me.
Yeah, if you have anything else to add, but that wraps up our questions.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you
that
so
sounds
much
good.
for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us. This has been the Center for Conservative Media here with Rachel Sanders, our campus dietitian. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys next time.